闘争は終わらない。なおも忍びは戦い続ける。己の信ずる道を歩むために。
While Madara and Hashirama had their fair share of opposing personality traits, both of them agreed to one thing. They realized that the shinobi world was broken. They were not a fan of the constant war between different clans and recognized the amount of pain, bitterness, and loss people had to endure as a result of this, including themselves. They had already lost a number of their siblings who died very young, and wished to live in a world where kids didn't have to sacrifice their lives and everyone could live peacefully. Out of the two of them, Madara was definitely the most cynical. There were moments where you can tell that he couldn't fully sink in this wish because of how blissfully hopeful it sounded, but it was still something he dreamed of, and the fact that he could share that dream with someone else, aka Hashirama, made him feel more comfortable wishing for a future like that. Until he found out that Hashirama was a Senju, and just like that, he couldn't really perceive him the same way he did before. He was a part of the same clan that was responsible for the death of his brothers. Same thing goes with his clan that was responsible for the death of Hashirama's siblings. Naturally, that dream he once had and was already feeling doubtful towards felt even more out of reach, and he ultimately decided to resort to the real world, which was his clan and his desire to protect his brother Izuna. And as he grew, he became more powerful and climbed up the rankings. He ended up carrying the responsibility of protecting his entire clan. Hashirama, on the other hand, while being in the same position as Madara, had a different mindset. He was still hopeful for a better world and recognized the flaw in place in this never-ending feud between the Senju and the Uchiha, in which every warrior had an undying loyalty for their clan, and if this conflict was ever going to end, someone had to step up, put aside all of their interfamiliar baggage, and propose a compromise. For Hashirama, it was a lot easier than it probably could have been because the leader of the Uchiha clan was Madara, his former best friend. But if he wanted to convince Madara to reach a compromise, he had to show some sort of loyalty-breaking gesture. Madara proposed Hashirama to sacrifice his life as a form of gesture, and in doing so, Hashirama would essentially abandon his clan and leave them more powerless against Uchiha, given how he was their biggest asset and their leader. Nevertheless, given how Tobirama killed Izuna, who was Madara's only brother left, the fact that he didn't propose Hashirama to end his brother's life, in spite of the fact that it would leave them even, also showed the amount of compassion Madara still had for his former best friend, and he didn't want Hashirama to experience the same pain he went through. This proposal eventually led to a compromise, and both of them were willing to put their animosity aside and work together. This would lead to a period where what would soon to become Konoha was moving forward and going through a path of peace. Children didn't have to go to war, the atmosphere felt more peaceful, other civilizations were taking inspiration, and just like that, Hashirama and Madara were getting close to achieving their goals and changing the world. However, once again, their subtle idealistic differences creeped in again. While Hashirama was still under the belief that cooperation between people is the right direction to achieving peace, Madara begged to differ. He recognized that conflict still existed among clans and villages. It was just simply less physical and transparent than before. He also studied the stone tablet and learned about the previous attempts at achieving peace that backfired in the past. But unlike before, when he was younger, Madara had hoped that he could, in fact, achieve peace, thanks to a passage from the stone tablet that stated that bringing together the two halves of light and dark, which represented the Senju and Uchiha respectively, can grant the power of all creation, which Madara interpreted as true happiness. But, taking into account the previous failed attempts at peace and his own observation of the present Uchiha clan slowly being dominated and discriminated by the Senju, he reached the conclusion that cooperation, which was what Hashirama believed in, was not the right solution for this problem. So instead, he found a different way of interpreting this passage. He realized that he had to unite all of the powers exclusive to each bloodline into one, which would in theory give him the power of all creation. He saw himself as the only one who could truly save the world. He understood what it meant to have loyalty for your clan, he understood how that loyalty can lead to more conflict among other clans, and he genuinely wanted to achieve peace. Same with Hashirama, the only difference being that he felt like Hashirama was too naive to recognize the lack of possibility of true peace through cooperation ever happening. And it's really hard to prove Madara wrong when Hashirama ended up proving his point during the Valley of the End battle. Hashirama was willing to kill his best friend in an attempt to protect his village and the amount of work and time spent to reach that level of peace. Essentially, he was possessing the same mentality he resented. The only difference is that instead of wanting to protect a single clan, he wanted to protect an entire village, but the attitude was essentially the same: loyalty to a group of people he's attached to, and the willingness to give up on compromise and kill his opposite side, posing danger to his family.
俺の体だ。やっと戦いを実感できるぞ。
I will respect Madara for one thing: he is the ultimate breaker of destiny, seeing himself as the one aware of the flaws in humanity, plus smart and powerful enough to do something to change the world. He is even willing to dodge mortality. After he used Izanagi to cheat death, he attached himself to Hashirama's cells and the Geromazu to extend his lifespan. During the Fourth War, he managed to gain powers associated to Ashura's incarnates, even though he's a ninja incarnate, and then Hagoromo stated that Madara at that point wasn't even an incarnation of Indra anymore, and he had evolved way beyond that. He was a goddamn legend, and while you can morally shame his desire to put everyone under permanent illusion of peace and sacrificing lives and free will during the process, you have to recognize the amount of work and passion he put into everything he did, all in the name of bringing everyone happiness. However, the Fourth War was also what led to the rupture of Madara's ideals. Now, I don't want to begrudge Hashirama for killing Madara. Yes, he was his best friend, but he was threatening the village, and if he hadn't done anything to stop him, he probably would have put his entire village in danger, so I can respect him for that. But I also acknowledge that in doing so, he proved Madara right. However, while this human instinct to protect your beloved ones can lead to more conflict, it can also lead to unity, and that's exactly what ended up happening. A multitude of villagers with all sorts of social-political disconnects managed to team up and fight against Madara, proving that when put aside our differences, at the end of the day, we want to achieve the same thing, and every shinobi out there who endangered themselves and cooperated with other shinobi all share the same goal. More respect I have to give to Madara for managing to indirectly enhance the relations between the civilizations by the time the Boruto era started, and all he had to do was expose each and everyone's bare human desires. It was basically the same thing that happened when Hashirama and Madara first met. Not revealing their clans allowed them to speak to each other by sharing their human emotions, devoid of corruption by familiar and socio-political baggage. And even though their personalities were different and even considered themselves rivals, they saw eye to eye with each other. Another thing, or better yet, another person that put Madara's ideals in question, unfortunately before he even got to realize, was Naruto. Something else that sets Hashirama apart from Madara is the fact that his will of fire ended up influencing a lot more people than Madara's way of thinking did. Aside from, I guess, Obito, who eventually abandoned his pessimistic beliefs, Madara was all alone. When Naruto fought against Sasuke in the Valley of the End for the second time, the circumstances weren't all that different from Hashirama's fight against Madara. His best friend, though having a significantly different goal and methodology, was posing a threat against his village. But unlike Hashirama, who was willing to end the life of his friend in the name of protection, Naruto didn't, and it wasn't because he didn't care about the village. He wanted to become the Hokage and treasured every living member of Konoha to the same degree Hashirama did. The only difference is that Naruto was mentally strong enough not to sacrifice his best friend's life to protect everyone. This goes along with something Hashirama said before Madara died. We were both too hasty. We didn't need to fulfill our dreams ourselves. It was more important to cultivate those who would come after us. And Naruto is the prime example of that. I don't blame Hashirama for not being able to fully replicate the composure he had when he fought against Madara right before they compromised. In a way, the Warring States period was a traumatic experience for him, and after working so hard to achieve some amount of peace only for someone else to want to take that away, it's no surprise he wasn't composed enough to rationalize the flaw beneath his action. Naruto, however, is in a position where he can manage to carry on the will of fire and stand above Hashirama's mistakes, and he's not the only one who can do this as the generations pass. The same way how Hashirama observed the broken society he was living in and the unproductive actions of his elders, a lot can be learned from history. Other people can come along in the future, carry his will, and potentially fix errors committed by him. by adjusting the social system just a bit more, as long as Naruto continues to spread his influence. But I know one thing, I wish he had witnessed the battle between Naruto and Sasuke, because in doing so, he could die feeling even more reassured, knowing that the never-ending destined conflict between the Senju and the Uchiha was finally over, and both of them had finally officially compromised. If a stubborn, long-lasting history pattern like this can be broken by future generations, then maybe we can have trust that one day our species can reach true peace, even if it takes hundreds or thousands of years to do so. But I'm glad that during his last few seconds, his best friend stood alongside him.